I'm here with Jill Castle. I met her when she was presenting for a webinar with Pelvic Raw, and I just found her so emotive and inspiring that I just thought, right, okay, I've got to get involved with this woman. And I've been in touch with Jill ever since, and she's got some exciting stuff going on, and I just thought, well, it'd be really good if we can just hear Jill's story, because I think the more people that hear it, the better. So, Jill, I'm going to pass over to you, my darling.
Well, hi Louise and hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me on to have a chat with you all. Really, really excited and honoured to be here. I'd also like to give a big shout out to you, Louise, and Adore Your Pelvic Floor for all of the support that you've given me, and to my various causes, which you'll find out a little bit more about as I'm talking. So thank you very, very much. It's really, really appreciated. So, well, what is Louise talking about? Where did we meet and how did we meet? Why was I at the Pelvic Raw event? What have I got to do with pelvic issues? Well, I am now 42 years old, but 10 years ago, when I was 32, I was a police officer working in Bradford, so that's in West Yorkshire Police. It's a fit and healthy woman, married to my husband. We didn't have any children at that point, and I fell pregnant that summer. So I had a very uneventful pregnancy. There was nothing to suggest that my delivery was going to go awry. I continued exercising and maintaining my fitness and my health throughout my pregnancy, and I was due to give birth at the end of November 2011. Unfortunately, I went into spontaneous early labour 6 weeks before my due date in the October. Now, because I went into early labour, it meant, of course, that my baby Sam was small. So he was actually only £4.7 when he was born, but which is actually quite a good weight for being 6 weeks early. But because he was small, he got tired during the delivery. And as you might know, when babies are being born, they actually have to help themselves out of the birthing canal. And he was unable to do that because he got tired, he got stuck, and he went into distress and his heart rate failed. So because his heart rate started to fail, they had to work really quickly in an emergency setting to get him out. So they whipped him out using Neville Barnes forceps, essentially saved his life, but unfortunately left me with really, really severe injuries. Now, it wasn't clear at the time exactly what those injuries were, not for me anyway, and actually not for anybody else in the room. I was told after the delivery that I had experienced quite a bad tear. I was told that I'd had sustained a third-degree tear, which I'm sure you'll all know there are different categories of tears that you can have when you have a baby. So you can have a first-degree tear, which is the smallest tear, and then it goes all the way through the first, second, the third, and the fourth degree tear. And I was told that I had a third degree tear, which is really quite a significant tear to have. I was stitched up in the operating theatre, and then I was told, you'll be absolutely fine. All you need to do is keep your wound nice and clean, nice and healthy, make sure you shower, make sure you keep it dry, and that was it really. There was no suggestion that there was going to be any long-term problems as a result of having such a significant tear. And yeah, off I went onto the maternity ward with my little baby, who was tube fed, because again I didn't have any milk supply, and yeah, that was us on the maternity ward. The day after the birth, of course, I was in a significant amount of pain, but when you've never had a baby before, you don't actually know what's normal and what's not normal. And the maternity ward that I was on, I went there with my husband, and he's actually a former Marine, a former Royal Marine. And he said to me, you know what, Jill, this is like being in a field hospital, because there were just women everywhere, staggering around, holding onto walls. You could see them in pain all the time as they were walking, getting in and out of their bed, and I was exactly the same. And it was really, really shocking, because you never ever see that side of people having a baby. You only ever see people pushing their prams down the street, or in the cafe having a cup of coffee with their friends. You don't see the actual physical realities of what it's like just after you've had a baby for a lot of people, because there are a lot of women on that ward. So anyway, I thought, well, you know, the level of pain that I'm in, this must be normal. And it's a bit of female ego comes into it then, because I thought, well, I'm not going to complain. You know, I'm a police officer. I'm just going to crack on. I'm just going to get on with it. And that's very much how I've been brought up, just to get on with things and not really complain. But after a couple of days, the pain was getting more and more severe. And it was getting to the point where I was dreading going to the toilet for either bowel movement. And I sort of knew that something wasn't right, because I wasn't getting any better. I was starting to get worse. And then I noticed brown discharge on my underwear, and I thought, well, what's this from? So I mentioned it to the midwife, and she said, oh, it'll just be from the tissues. You get that sort of browny mucus when tissues are knotting together. And she said that also explains why it's so hot, because I was also complaining of the heat, and I had a really high temperature, and I was exceptionally hot. And I thought, right, okay, well, that kind of makes sense to me. But even so, I shouldn't be in the level of pain that I'm in. And then I noticed that I was incontinent, and I had poo in my underwear, but I couldn't really work out where this was coming from. And I remember after about 2.5, maybe 3 days, I was in the shower, and I was really, really distressed because, and this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I couldn't work out where my anus was, because I couldn't work out where this poo was coming from. It was just running down my legs. So I pulled the emergency buzzer, and midwife came over, and I said, really distressed, crying, and I said, if I bend over, can you show me where my anus is? I don't know where it's gone. And she just looked at me like I was completely insane and said, you're fine. Just get yourself dressed and, go back to bed, sort of thing. And it's constantly feeding into the idea that I was going crazy. I literally thought I was going mad, because I kept saying to people, there's stuff in my underwear. I don't know where my anus is. I'm getting worse. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of heat. Anyway, this went on for another couple of days. So we're now 4.5 days after the birth, and I couldn't take it anymore. As you've probably gathered by now, I'm fairly articulate. I'm more than capable of speaking up for myself and communicating with people. But all I could manage on that day when I collapsed in the corridor were the words, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And I was found by a male midwife who found me in the corridor, and he said, are you all right? And I just said, no, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And that's all I was able to say. And he said, in the now infamous words of, well, maybe it's your perception of the pain. And I was like, right, okay, I cannot believe I've just been dismissed. I'm actually collapsed, and I can hardly speak. And obviously, it's just my perception of the pain. So I staggered off to bed eventually, and another midwife came to examine me, and that's when all hell broke loose. I was taken into a private room. I was examined under gas and air by the head of gynecology, who then called the colorectal specialist down. And they discovered that I'd had a missed 4th-degree tear, so I'd been split all the way through my vagina, all the way through my rectum, my internal and my external sphincter. I also had a very rare complication called a rectovaginal fistula. That's when you've got a hole between your rectum and your vagina. So I had feces coming out of my vagina, which explained why I couldn't work out where my anus was and where the poo was coming from, because it was coming out of an area it should not be coming out of. And also I developed a significant abscess around my perineum, around the tear, which had burst. So they said, right, the only thing that we can do is to fit you with a colostomy, with a stoma, because we need to diverse the feces away from your tear, and that's the only option that we've got. It's only going to be for 12 weeks. It's going to be temporary. Then when the 12 weeks is over, we'll be able to fix your tear, and you'll get on with the rest of your life. Again, no indication that having such a terrible tear can affect your continence or can affect your pelvic health. It was just, this is what we're going to do, and then after 12 weeks you'll be fine, basically, when we repair you. So that was it. That was the first indication I had that I was going to have this life-changing surgery. 6 days after I had the baby, I had the surgery, had emergency surgery to have the colostomy fitted. I couldn't really get my head around it, obviously, because, well, I just had a baby. I was still in a lot of pain. I had, all my significant injuries. I was actually separated from Sam. I was put on a separate ward because the midwives didn't know how to deal with anybody with a stoma, and the colorectal team didn't know how to deal with a premature baby who was tube fed. So Sam actually had to go into special care for the weekend. So all of this is happening within a week of having a baby. So you can imagine I wasn't in a I wasn't in a particularly good place. So eventually, after a couple of weeks, we were discharged. I went home. My husband is actually a diver, and he works away from home for up to 5, 6. Well, at the minute, he's just been away for 2 months, so he goes away for quite a long period of time, and he had to go back to work. So my mum came down and looked after me. And yeah, I spent the next year in a state of unremitting hell. There is no other word to describe it. I struggled a lot with bag leaks. I couldn't get the right bags for my stoma. My stoma kept changing size because as your abdomen changes size, so does your stoma. And then you have to change your bags, the size of the bags to fit your stoma. And it's a constant process of trying to find the right bag for you. I also didn't get my fistula fixed for a year because it's an extremely complicated surgery. But because that fistula tract was actually septic, every now and then I had to be rushed into hospital as an emergency to get this septic tract drained because it was all just building up and up and up and up. So, it was just horrendous. Clearly, I developed significant mental health problems as a result of all of this. I had post-traumatic stress. I lived in a state of complete hypervigilance for, I would say, at least 3 or 4 years. And of course, by hypervigilance, I mean that you're on the edge all the time. You're constantly thinking there's going to be a disaster. There's going to be some life-changing thing that's going to happen at any moment. I was constantly catastrophizing everything. Every time my husband went away, I imagined he would be killed, or my mum would be killed on her way down to support me, and I would be on my own, or my baby was going to get meningitis and be disabled. It was constant, and I just remember being tense all the time. And my mother-in-law said she remembers at that time looking at me, and she said, I just knew you were a woman on the edge. She said, like any little thing was just going to send you off this planet altogether. Because I was also not only dealing with my injuries, not only trying to come to terms with my stoma, but I was also going through the process of suing the hospital because we realised that the doctor had made quite a significant mistake. Yes, she had missed the fact that I had a 4th degree tear, but what she'd done initially is she thought that I had sustained a 2nd degree tear. So she'd stitched me up as having a 2nd degree tear. Then she thought, no, actually, I think you've got a 3rd degree tear. So she took all the stitches down and stitched me back up as a 3rd degree tear, sent me on my way. It was actually a 4th degree tear. So, of course, if you think about sewing a piece of material, if you keep sewing up in the same area, the material becomes very friable, and then there becomes no material left to make a proper repair, and that's what happened to me. And the hospital revealed all of this in their investigation. And essentially, I was struggling so much with my stoma. I had such severe mental health problems. Obviously, I was significantly depressed, and I also had postnatal depression. And really, I had no hope. I couldn't see how this was ever going to end, and I couldn't see how I was ever going to be happy, and how I was going to be a police officer, to be a mother, to operate in society. So the police started medical retirement procedures, and eventually in April 2013 I lost my job. I was medically pensioned out of the police. So this is everything that I was dealing with in the first 2 years of having my baby. And And a lot of it I did on my own because my husband had to work away, but he had to work away because he was the main breadwinner. And, I was on maternity pay, then I was on sick pay, which got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then I lost my job. So we didn't have any choice. He had to work away. And also, when you're in this situation, you are alone. Um, there was nobody I knew who was like me. Like nobody I could find that could understand what I was going through. Stoma nurses would say to me, which is no criticism of them, it's just a fact. They would say we've never met anyone who's got a stoma as a result of having a baby. And my health visitors would say, we've never met anyone who's suffered like you have. And this is all very well and good because it's true, but it just added to the whole feeling of vulnerability and loneliness because I thought, well, not even medical professionals can understand what I'm going through, let alone the ordinary mummy who just has a baby. So I did look on internet forums to try and get some support, but when you're in that situation, you can find other women who've got severe injuries, but we're all struggling. Like if you get through this, you just get on with your life. You're not on these internet forums, so therefore when you're struggling and you join these internet forums, it's actually really depressing because there's no hope on there, like at all. There was nobody saying to me, actually, I think you'll be all right eventually. So this is how my life continued for the first 3 or 4 years. I cocooned myself, I protected myself because physically, because I was so frightened about getting a hernia, because a peristomal hernia, which is basically a hernia around your stoma site, that is something that we're really quite prone to have as an ostomate. An ostomate is somebody who's got a stoma. And obviously, I'd spent a significant amount of time in hospital and I'd been severely injured while in hospital. So I was going to do anything it took to not be back in hospital. So that's really how I was living, a state of high anxiety, depression, no hope, not, just not embracing life, to be honest. I was kind of just existing and protecting myself.
Mm.
And then I had my life-changing moment. And this was when I was in a hospital again. I was in a waiting room and I was flicking idly through a magazine. And I stumbled across an article purely by chance by a lady who had a stoma, who was a triathlete. And I could not believe what I was reading because I thought, well, what do you mean? You're a triathlete with a stoma, like, and you haven't got a hernia. I don't understand. Like, how can you swim and cycle and run and one after another all at all in one go? I don't understand how this is possible, and I was absolutely fascinated. But also what she said during the article was that she felt gratitude for her stoma. And it's really important that everybody understands that every single person that has a stoma has one as a result of trauma. So you either have sudden trauma, like me, you have a baby, or you have a car accident, or you have a twisted bowel, um, or an impalement in your abdomen, and you end up with a stoma. Or you have long-term trauma, so you have Crohn's and colitis or diverticulitis, or perhaps you've had long-running bowel cancer, and you've had a lot of problems with your bowels, a lot of pain, and then you get a stoma. Now, those people, they can see quite quickly the positive impact that having a stoma can have on their life. It's much easier to see that because, especially if you've got something like Crohn's or colitis, which is a very significant bowel disease, extremely painful. You can have your stoma fitted and then a lot of that pain goes away. But for someone like me, it was really difficult, if not impossible, to see what on earth was positive about having this stoma. Because, of course, I'd been absolutely fine one day, and then the next minute, I woke up with a stoma. But then I thought, you know what, Jill, there's got to be something positive about this. It really has, think about this. So I thought about it and I realised that I'd had 5 days in hospital where I was incontinent. I was wearing adult nappies. My friend used to come and visit me, and I remember her saying, "Oh, it smells of poo in here." And I just blamed it on the baby. And I thought, well, actually, having a stoma has stopped that life from continuing. That those 5 days of incontinence, that would be your life. especially because I can't be repaired. Um, and then it was just like not even a light bulb moment. It was like a lighthouse in a storm. I just thought, wow, okay, this has actually saved me. I can go out and, oh, look at this lady. She can do triathlons. And, then started the almost fatal thought in my head, which has driven me for the last 7 years. Well, if she can do it, why can't I? And I thought, right, well, that's it. And so I thought, right, I'm going to do a triathlon because I'd always wanted to do a triathlon. But before I had my stoma, I was very much the kind of person that thought I could never do that. I didn't even think I would get into the police. I didn't apply for the police until I was 27. I didn't have the confidence to think that I would get in because, like we all do, we all think we've got all the time in the world to do whatever you want. And it was a real wake-up call because I thought actually I had a whole entire year where I was completely incapacitated. I was in and out of hospital all the time. And I thought, actually, Jill, you're fine now. Like I had the right bags by that point. And I thought that there's actually no reason why you can't just get on with your life. So I did. I joined an indoor cycling club, which was run by the Triathlon Club. And I thought, right, I'm going to do a triathlon because nothing that I do now can be as bad as what I've been through in 2011 to 2012. And so, yeah, I went off and I did my first little sprint triathlon. I was the first person at that event that the organisers had there who had a stoma, because I contacted them a lot with all my problem. What if I do if my bag leaks? What if I do, if I need to change my bag? And they said it's fine. It's not the Olympics. You'll be fine. We'll have marshals. We can even drive you back to the. It's fine. We just want you to take part. And I did. And yeah, I couldn't believe that I'd done something with my stoma that I would never even have tried without one. And that propelled me onwards. A couple of years after that, in 2017, the Triathlon Club decided en masse, there must have been about 20 of us, decided to do the Outlaw Half Ironman, which is a 1.2 mile open water swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and a 13.2-mile run. And I thought, I'm just going to do it. Right, I'm going to do it. So I did it. I came out in public for the first time with my story, and I raised over £5,000 for the Birth Trauma Association. And that was a really significant event for me because, well, it was the biggest thing I'd ever done in my life, endurance-wise, but also I was running with a Birth Trauma Association vest on. I'd been in the papers, I'd been on BBC Radio Newcastle. It was like, it was out there. And there was no going back, and I found it really, really empowering. And I also noticed how many women contacted me and said, thank you so much for being open about this, because it's hell sometimes when you have a baby and nobody talks about it. Similarly, when you've got a stoma, it's something that a lot of people hide, which is absolutely fine. There is no reason for you to be public about it if you don't want to do with your personality, but I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm quite prepared to be out there in the public and talking about this, because a lot of people feel ashamed that they have a stoma, and you shouldn't do. It's just it's a life-saving apparatus. We only have them because it's going to improve our life. And my ethos is trying to prove to people that your life doesn't have to end after trauma. It doesn't have to end because you've got a stoma. Yeah, I mean, it's actually unbelievably the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I did the half Ironman, but as doing the half Ironman, I had to face my fear of the open water because I'm a child of the 1980s. I watched Jaws when I was 8, never went in the sea again for 30 years. And I had to really, really face this fear to do this 1.2 mile open water swim. And I thought, right, I want to get back in the sea because when I was 8, I loved the sea. And I thought, I'm not having fear of the sea dictating what I can and what I can't do. And I want to get back in that sea and I want to claim it back for myself. So I joined a local group of sea swimmers and I spent a year and a half swimming with them at the same place. My little tactic was shutting my eyes when my face was in the water and opening my eyes when my face was out of the water, because I would have instantaneous panic attack if I looked and I couldn't see anything. Till somebody pointed out, you know what, Jill? You might actually swim into something if you don't open your eyes. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. So I practiced. Literally, I started with 2 seconds. I would open my eyes for 2 seconds, and then the panic started to rise, and I would be like, no, 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 you can do this, you can do this. So I went on 4 seconds, and then 6 seconds. I just kept this went on for a long, 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 long time, and eventually, I don't know what happened. I think it's desensitization, confidence. I just thought, I'm not bothered. I can do this. I'm not bothered, and that was the next thing that I did. So yeah, I've done all sorts of things. I've been scuba diving. I was told I could never scuba dive with a stoma. What a load of rubbish. I'm a now qualified scuba diver. I've been skydiving. I've done endurance events. But the craziest thing of all that I'm doing is next August. Someone said to me last year, said, Joe, you do quite a bit of open water swimming now. I mean, I do still have a lot of fears about the open water, don't get me wrong. I'm not a complete ninja. I've still got that fear in the back of my head about a lot of things, especially swimming in the dark, swimming on my own, anything like that freaks me out. And I said, yeah, I do quite a lot. And they said, well, have you ever thought about swimming in the channel? And I was like, no. And then I just thought, I'm going to swim the channel. I'm going to do it. I'm going to swim to France, and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do this to show what's possible if you put your mind to it. I'm going to do it to raise awareness of all these women that suffer childbirth injuries. I want to raise awareness of all these people that have got stomas. But ultimately, I want to bring hope to people and to say, look what it is possible to overcome. So I've got a place to swim it all by myself next August in 2023. So it's 21 miles as the seagull flies, but it's about 25 miles by the time you've gone with the tides. It's extremely daunting. It's like putting it mildly. I'm filled with utter horror at the idea that my slot might be overnight. Like I have to swim on my own at night next to the boat.
I hope not.
Yeah, because you don't get any choice. Your tide's your tide. You just have to get on with it. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm training for at the moment.
Blow me
And
away.
yeah, I've got a great life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, even as you were talking then, and right now, I'm having to hold my emotion just a little bit because it's like, it's just such a hell of a winning story for what you've done on what you're doing, and you keep doing. And I'm very much a believer about talking. I'm like you, I wear my heart on my sleeve. And if we don't talk about things, then other people are also going to be lonely. And that loneliness, that was really, hard to hear. But there's a lot of loneliness, and I'm just so proud of you. And
Thank you.
it just blows me away, Gill. It does.
But I think the key thing is though, it's changing your mindset. Like I was very lucky. Like I feel so lucky. I feel like the luckiest person in the world. And I think, I've just got real gratitude for all the things that I am able to do, because I've appreciated and experienced a time when I wasn't able to do things. And I appreciate how lucky I am, basically. And also, I think when you've been through a really tough time and you've had options taken away from you, like I did, I had like my dream career just taken off me just like that. I'd always wanted to join the police, and then it was gone just like that. And for that year, particularly after the birth, I didn't have the option of cycling and swimming, and I didn't have those choices. They were taken away from me. And once you have those choices back in your life, then you're a damn fool if you don't take advantage of them. And I feel really, really lucky that I know that and I appreciate all of that. And so I get out there and I do everything I can. One of the things I really, really hate when people say to me is, oh, I wish I could do X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, why can't you? Why can't you? I wish I could swim in the sea. And why can't you? Oh, well, I'm a bit scared. Well, I was terrified. And I'm like, if you really, really want to do something, you'll do it. Find the right people, find your right tribe, find the supportive people, get the right people around you, change your mindset, And you really can do it. People are amazing. People do amazing things every day, and I'm just really grateful that I know that. So I just want people to be a bit braver, really, and have more confidence.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to mention your social media pages, because then people can follow your story from here on, because you're always doing something.
I'm always doing something, yeah.
And your posts are always just like, wow, look at that. Oh my gosh, you've had models done of you, haven't you?
Yeah,
Models, and there's
yeah. Pottery cast.
artwork. There is so much going on that is just
Yeah.
always actually brings a nice smile to a morning when I see your
Oh,
post.
thank you.
So
Yeah, well, I've got loads of exciting stuff coming up. Loads of projects are about to be released, and loads of adventures that I'm going on, and trips I'm going on. Yeah, there's
yeah,
just follow the
you,
page. There's honestly
it's like
loads of
so
stuff.
much. So on Instagram, you're Stoma Chameleon, aren't you?
Yes, Stoma_Chameleon.
And then
Um,
on Facebook.
Facebook, just Stoma Chameleon, and I've also got a website which is www.stomachameleon.com, and I'm also on Twitter, Stoma Chameleon.
Brilliant, brilliant. Excellent. Well, I just want to thank you for your time, because many people will get to see this video, and I think it's important that people hear your story. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Well, thank you for giving me the platform. Thank you very much, Louise.
Well, we're going to come together again, and we're going to be talking about another very vital project that you are basically charitting out there, that we're going to let everyone know. So if you've watched this video, please now watch another video that will be with Jill and I, because then we can hear about this fantastic project that if you want to get involved with. Okay, thank you very much. See you soon, Jill.
Thanks.